Well, we entered the weekend with 4 teams with unbeaten conference records. We left the weekend with 2. And what the heck happened to Clemson?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On this episode of Locked On ACC, we'll talk about Mike Norvell. If there actually is a road for Florida State to make a coaching change, it's bizarre we're in this spot after, he went 13-0 last year, and now they're 1-8. Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles is going to join us a little bit later on. We'll talk about whatever that was that happened to Clemson on Saturday night. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes, alongside Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. And Kenton, we're both smiling today. Our teams, Miami and NC State, they won and they put up 50 burgers.
What? Who wouldn't have predicted this, right? Miami, best offense in America. NC State, starting a true freshman quarterback, starting a redshirt freshman running back, starting, youth all over the place, and not putting up 50 points on Western Carolina and Louisiana Tech combined, by the way. If you combine the two scores from that game, we didn't put up 50. And lo and behold, you dropped 50 on Stanford.
Yeah.
That Bailey kid's getting comfortable again.
I like him so much.
Thank you very much, Cristobal, for waiting so late. We appreciate you, and please leave him alone. Do not ask him to jump in the portal. Thank you. I will call the people for tampering. I will do it.
Yeah, CJ Bailey, Chaminade Madonna, high school grad in South Florida. He was Jeremiah Smith's quarterback in high school, so he's used to putting up big numbers in the passing game. And Kenton, I was of course I was at Hard Rock Stadium covering Miami against Duke. That game was an all-out roller coaster to the point where it kind of annoys me that Miami fans can't keep their negative takes until after the game is over, because have we learned nothing from games like Virginia Tech and Cal? You're going to say a lot of bizarre things during the game when you're venting that are going to be kind of irrelevant by the time the game is over. But then I think Clemson fans forgot they had to play on Saturday night, because when Miami they were at one point down 11 points to Duke before winning the game by 22 points. I kept seeing Clemson fans and national media members like, wow, Miami, when they see Clemson in the ACC championship game, they're going to get destroyed. Watch out for Clemson. I mean, Clemson forgot they had to play that night, and they end up losing at home to Louisville. The ACC is nuts this year.
I figured it out. Dabo Swinney has a personal vendetta against me for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what I did to him. But I said, I don't believe in this team. They're fraudulent after week 1, right? And then Dabo goes to locker, and he says, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to win about 6, 7 straight. Okay, we're going to make Kenton believe that we're a good team. And then we're going to do the type of idiotic things you could only imagine. I'm going to have announcers talking about the game saying, wait, mathematically, it doesn't make sense to kick the extra point here. You need to go for 2 when they were down 12, and it would have 13 rather, and that 2-point conversion would have made it 11. So it would have only been down a touchdown 2-point conversion and a field goal more. They kicked the field goal, or they kicked the extra point rather, instead of going for 2. He did it because he's like, Ken believes in us. We have to be incompetent in every way this week.
We'll show him.
His dumb self sat up there and said, I'm sorry, Clemson doesn't need the portal. They'll be just fine. I'm going to prove them wrong in this game right here. Watch us cook, boys. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment in Death Valley, of all places.
Yeah.
It's not even like you were on the road and, what? Just sad and disappointing.
And that's the thing. It's like, how do you lose that game at home? And credit credit to Louisville, Kenton, because they had defensive issues in their previous few games. They addressed it. They made some big plays on special teams. They blocked 2 field goals in the game. Isaac Brown, who he is the new Eli Holstein. Eli Holstein was the rookie flavor of the month for about the first 6 weeks or so. I think Isaac Brown, the Louisville running back, he's going to end up being ACC Rookie of the Year with the trajectory he's on. He had a career high 151 rushing yards in the game. As far as Clemson football goes, and listen, there's been unprecedented amounts of parity around college football. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you Clemson's a bad football team. That was a bad loss. But here was what I think from a Clemson point of view, and of course now they no longer control their own destiny to make it to the ACC championship game. They would still get in, but they need Miami or SMU to lose a game and then potentially rely on a tiebreaker. So they no longer control their own destiny. But to me, it's like Kenton, when they fell behind double digits to Louisville, you never felt like Clemson had any answers on offense. You never felt like they had any urgency. So it really makes you worried about how they respond from adversity and kind of makes you feel like they're a front-running team. Now, they just, they came off a 6-game winning streak where they bounced back from that bad loss to Georgia to start the year, but their offense was completely canceled out against Georgia. In the 6 games that they won, they were ahead, they were front running for all those games, and then they fall behind in this game, and they didn't have any answers to come back, and that's that's a tough sell when we're trying to evaluate Clemson offensive football. It's like, I know we all thought, hey, maybe they could match up really well with some of the top teams, come college football playoff time. I'm starting to doubt that again.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right to doubt it. The front runner thing is one of those tropes that's like, oh, they, walk around with a big chest and talk all this talk. Clemson is not a trash talking team, but by definition, they are a front running team. Have they been in any game where they were down for any meaningful amount of time and come back? I would want to say technically maybe Virginia, maybe, if you would consider that down enough. But I am looking at this team saying, okay, with all due respect to Virginia, they played out of their minds this season. They played above their heads at many points of time this season. Shout out to Coach Elliott and Tony Tony Calandria. Yes, Tony Calandria. Thank you for that. And what they've done. But the reality is, I have not seen this team against a team with a pulse get down and fight back. I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And in this game, they look, like you said, lack of energy, out of sorts, discombobulated. And it was just like, hey, did y'all know y'all had a game today? This ain't basketball. You don't get a secret scrimmage. You get all real games immediately. That's what this is. So, it was very, very disappointing showing by Clemson. But credit to Louisville as well, because this is the first game. At what point in time during this game did you say Louisville is in their own way again?
Never.
Not once. Exactly.
And they were doing the opposite. They're blocking field goals. They're the ones making the big plays. Like they were in full control.
Exactly. So we got to credit Louisville for that.
Yeah, no doubt. But at the end of the day, and that was a big win for Louisville. And I'm sure that SMU and Miami are pretty thankful that Louisville got that done, because now the Mustangs and the Hurricanes control their own destiny. We'll talk about the wins that they got over the weekend. Don't forget, we will talk some Florida State before we're done here today, because Brian Smith from Locked On Noles, he is fired up. Like, he is absolutely fired up, because it's like, I know Norvell just got the big contract extension, but you can't go 1-8. Like, there's got to be some consequence for that, right? You want to keep it locked here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. I am energized thanks to 5 Hour Energy, and our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime. That's why they've created the Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are the last to leave. We see you. Folks, you know what else gives us a bit of fan fuel this week? Seeing SMU. I know Clemson. I know Kenton probably wasn't too happy about what SMU did to Pitt, but seeing SMU get that big win seeing Xavier Restrepo setting records at Miami. And hey, 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're preparing for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com and shipped nationwide. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Alex Dono from Locked On Canes alongside Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. A little bit later in this episode, we will be joined by Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles to talk about the curious case that is Mike Norvell. Before we get to all that, KG, Miami started out the day with another roller coaster performance against Duke. Let me give you the scoring summary for this one, Kenton, just to illustrate for the folks who didn't see the game how crazy it was. Miami jumps out to an effortless 14-0 lead. Cam's rolling. The defense was actually making plays. Miami forced a 3-and-out on Duke's first drive, interception on Duke's second drive. I felt like Miami got complacent after they jumped out to a 14-0 lead. And then Miami's defense started to do what they've done way too much this year, and that's give up chunk plays and looking lost in coverage. And after Miami outscored Duke 14-0 to start the game, Duke goes on a 28-3 run, and they end up taking a 28-17 lead midway into the third quarter. And then Miami closes out the game on a 36-3 run. And, you know, Kenton, we've consistently all year long, there's a reason why Cam Ward is one of the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. Like, Miami's offense has been consistently effective. The defense for the Hurricanes sometimes looks bad, other times looks terrible, but sometimes, I'll use your word, they look opportunistic. So as bad as Miami's D was at times in that game, in the fourth quarter, they forced 2 3-and-outs and get 2 takeaways to help Cam Ward and company close out that game. And somehow they covered the spread. It was 20.5 points. Miami wins by 22. So I know people look at Miami and they certainly see a lot of flaws on the defensive side of the football, but they have this weird knack of, you know, unlike Clemson, Miami seems to be a team that is built to come from behind, and they have managed to get away with a few things this year and make some big plays when it matters most.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, when you talk about in terms of are they going to make the playoff, are they going to win the ACC, I think both of those things are solid yeses. I think both of those are hard yeses. When you look further and talk about national championship, that's a different conversation. But in terms of that, those first two conversations, they're absolutely going to get that done because Cam Ward in this offense, and let me not even say Cam Ward in this offense as a whole, they're so good. It's not even Cam Ward is Gladys Knight and everybody else is the Pips. It's literally like, this is, I don't think we've ever seen, musically, I don't think there's a comparison, because I don't think we've ever seen one group produce this many superstars.
Maybe it's the Beatles. They had four guys that were,
Maybe we got the Beatles on our hands because we've got a guy who's a Heisman frontrunner. We've got 2 backs, big, massive backs that have figured it out, both of them, at a very high level. We have an offensive line that, with all due respect to Cam Ward, my only criticism of him this year, he bails on a lot of clean pockets because that offensive line is giving him a lot of clean pockets. He has time to chill back there, make a sandwich, look at his Heisman odds, of course on FanDuel, and say, oh, well, I guess I should probably throw it now and get it done, right? And then the receivers, oh my God, Xavier Restrepo is breaking a new record every week. Arroyo at tight end, one of the best tight ends in the nation. I think that him and Justin Jolie are pretty much the only 2 guys in serious consideration for best tight end in the ACC. No disrespect to the other guys in the league. But you're looking at a group that I know I'm omitting a ton of guys with talent because of how good they are. Defensively, like I said, be opportunistic. Just get takeaways here and there. Just come, because do you trust them to consistently stop teams without takeaways, Dono?
No, they haven't done it all year. Like their best game was probably against Florida in the opener. It's been kind of a hot mess ever since then.
Exactly. And in that game, I thought to myself, oh, okay, Cam Ward might take a little time to adjust, but the defense will be good enough to where they can go ahead and get what they need done. It's become clear to me that defense is not good enough. So they need to be, when you get the opportunity to get a takeaway, you need to capitalize, because the little things, they cannot do that right now as a defense. And I know that that's not sustainable in terms of national championship, but in terms of ACC, they can absolutely get it done because of how prolific that offense is.
Now, before we move on to SMU and then Florida State with Brian Smith, you mentioned Xavier Restrepo. I need to throw him a shout out. Now, if there ever was a week for the ACC to finally make Restrepo of Miami ACC receiver of the week, because he's the leading receiver in the conference. Somehow he's never won receiver of the week. How about 100? I think it was 143 yards, 3 touchdown receptions, including his last touchdown reception in the game against Duke was a 66-yarder. He did most of the work in the yak after catching a pass from Ward. But on that play, Kenton, he broke or tied 3 different Miami program records on that play. He set the new record. He passed Santana Moss for first all-time in Miami career receiving yards. He also tied the records on that play for career receiving touchdowns at Miami and career receptions at Miami, scoring 3 touchdowns on the day. So if there ever was a week to make Xavier Restrepo the receiver of the week, this is the one to do it.
This is it. Throw up your X's, ladies and gentlemen. That young man deserves wide receiver of the week. There are plenty of good receivers this week. The significance of what he has done over the culmination, even if you would have an argument for anybody else, I don't think it would be a great one, but he's your receiver of the week, period. That's all there is to it.
Now, who knows what kind of twists and turns we might get between now and first week of December. Like, I'm not one of those people who's going to be like, oh, we have our ACC championship game. Like, who knows? But as of right now, Kenton, the 2 teams in the conference that control their own destiny to meet
Miami
in Charlotte
East and Miami West.
That's right. You got the Miami Hurricanes and the SMU Mustangs, who got a big win against Pitt. Like that was domination in Dallas. And I know when we connect with our guy Jackson Holzer, he's going to give you a hard time about that one, because you are the Pitt Panther apologist on the squad show. Your guys did not fare well.
I am an undefeated team apologist, and undefeated teams shouldn't even need a damn apologist. Let's start there. But with that being said, hey, SMU came out and laid it on them thick. They did whatever they wanted to do. They had their way with with Pitt in that game. The Sharks looked like guppies. They looked like they were out of water. It was a very, very tough game for Pitt because SMU showed up and showed their behind. I mean, and let me ask you this, Donald. We talked about Jennings and all of the turnover problems. How many times did Jennings turn the ball over in this one?
0, right?
0. That young man took care of the ball like nobody's business. And even beyond that, we talked about the biggest concern for them. Oh, man, how are they going to get it done in the trenches? Where are they going to be able to run the ball? Are they going to be – how about this for Brashard Smith? 23 carries, 161 yards, and 2 of them things. 2 of them. Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. This team right here deserves all the love. They deserve all the credit. They deserve everything that they have coming their way, because we saw them as a team with a chance to upset the apple cart, outside chance of maybe possibly making it. And look at them now. Look at them now. The Pony Express is back rolling, baby.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, Clemson, they're going to be now rooting for Miami or SMU to lose a game coming up. I'm not saying Clemson's completely out of it, nor is Pitt. And Pitt's going to have an opportunity against Clemson. But as of right now, Miami and SMU are in the driver's seat. Let's talk about Florida State when we come back, because I don't know how a head coach at a proud and storied football program like that can start 1-8 and expect to keep his job. I get there are financial reasons why he might very well keep his job, but we'll talk with Brian Smith about it. Locked On Seminoles host is going to join us here. You want to keep it locked. We're only getting started on this new episode of Locked On ACC. I'm only getting started with FanDuel. I mean, if you had the overs on Xavier Restrepo, you're in the money right now. And NFL fans, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. And we have the privilege of being joined by Locked On Seminoles host Brian Smith, who is fired up because, Brian, the football that you've been covering this year for the Florida State Seminoles, who are coming off an ACC championship season, a season where they were snubbed of a college football playoff appearance last year, but they follow that up with a 1-8 start. They just got blown out by North Carolina this past weekend. And so, Brian, I know the talk in recent weeks has been Norvell's not really on the hot seat, but he's got to fire all his coordinators and all his coaches. Got to change. He's got to revamp the staff. Is that good enough, Brian?
No, it is not. He needs to be fired. This is a complete joke at this point. For anybody that watched the game and for numerous people that were in my live show after the contest against North Carolina on Saturday evening, the discussion was the same. Players are quitting now.
Yeah.
Once that starts, it's disgusting. Kenton, let me throw this at you. You're a defensive lineman by trade. When you go 10-man front and the other team runs a dive, what should happen?
A 10-man front?
They literally, Florida State was running a 10-man front for several plays in the second half. What do you think happened?
That's a stop all day. You need a TFL coming out of that because it's impossible to possibly block up 10 guys at the line of scrimmage.
Now, theoretically, Mr. Gibbs is correct. But what happens when they're getting 8, 10, and 12 yards on that?
Oof.
Oh, my gosh.
Oof.
They had one guy playing center field, so they're playing single high, man up at corner, and the receivers were in pretty tight for Carolina, and they just ran dives, like inside zone dive plays. And the running back is just running through guys. Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you this. Do you think those guys are playing at maximum effort if they're in that front and that's the
Absolutely
result?
not. Absolutely not. Here's the thing. It's not even about Florida State at that point. If you are at a school with sufficient talent, not, hey, I'm bigger, better, I got Marvin Wilson, I got Peyton over here. If you are at a school with sufficient talent and you have there's a gap and there's a hat in every gap, if you're just giving everything you got, you're straining and doing everything you got, sure, they might break one run. 3, yeah, no, there's no way that you're giving everything you got and they're consistently breaking off chunk runs against it.
Here's the other play. The running back for Carolina, we've all talked about. He's really good football player. He'll get paid.
Yeah.
He'll get paid to play.
Yeah.
Florida State got after him on a play. Quarterback flips it to him just a few inches over the line of scrimmage, kind of like a shovel pass. He turns around, and it was like the Red Sea parted. Now, he's surrounded technically by Knowles, but he took it 49 yards untouched.
Yeah.
No effort at all.
And that highlight, it screamed no effort because nobody came into the frame. It was only people leaving the frame.
Exactly.
Like when you saw it, it was like there wasn't like that guy might run him down. It was like, oh, he should make it. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, Shaheed Brown's he's our best defensive player. He took an angle so bad a 7th grader would be ashamed. So that's when I literally was laughing on my couch as I was writing notes, and I just stopped writing. I was done. There's nothing else to talk about. This team is starting to quit, and I'm dead serious. They have Charleston Southern in a couple of weeks. They got Notre Dame this weekend. I'll explain that in a second. There's a chance they'll lose to Charleston Southern because players are quitting. Now, be honest. When you were back in Detroit and you were at Cass, I'm sure you played a few teams. You're like, man, I hope this me and some of the other guys just don't get hurt this week. They have no chance. They got guys that don't care.
Yeah, of course.
Well, if you're that team, it doesn't matter who you're playing for. Charleston Southern, that's their Super Bowl. And they're about to get annihilated by Notre Dame. And here's 2 reasons why. Notre Dame needs style points.
They do.
To increase they're going to score when there's 13 seconds left. It's play action pass. That's just the era we're in. You can say it's not and all that, but if you look at the teams that are right there on that border to get in, they're all throwing it in the fourth quarter. Look, this is what we signed up for. My title on my Monday show is going to be something along the lines, will Florida State lose by the largest margin since Bowden took over in the mid-'70s? Because it could be a 50-plus point game. You got players quitting, and Notre Dame's motivated. Cold game at night in South Bend. How well do you think that's going to go for mostly Florida kids?
That's going to be tough.
Well, let me ask you, like, what's the actual road? Like, I mean, we can definitely agree. You start 1-8, and it's going to get worse at a
100%.
program like Florida State. Like, you theoretically you cannot keep your job. However, if I'm seeing the figures correctly here, Brian, I'm looking at a $63.8 million buyout is what it would cost for them to fire Mike Norvell now. $63.8 million. So, what's the path to making that happen? Because, you know, I've heard things about Florida State, and obviously they're paying lawyers a lot of money to sue the ACC, and they're renovating the stadium right now. I mean, is $63.8 million, is that a feasible buyout for them?
I don't think it's a feasible buyout for anybody, but to your point, if you need it done well enough, there are boosters for every program that can. The bigger question I'm sure that the booster is going to ask is, okay, if I help you with Mike, who are we getting and what are we paying? Because this might be the worst year I've ever seen for quote unquote, well, there's a lock out there. If we get this guy, we're good. Who's the guy this year for any school? I don't think there is one.
There is.
Coach
but
Prime?
He just got to his spot. Signetti.
Prime, maybe.
Signetti,
That's
no, go get Sig. Go get Sig. If you feel like you got to fire Norvell, you got to go get Sig.
I'd be okay with that, but I heard that he just wants to be done. I agree with you. He's a phenomenal coach. Will he go recruit and do the things you need it for?
Right,
How old is he?
right.
70-ish?
Yeah, he's
Can he
up there.
recruit in the
He's
deep
up
South and deal with the stuff you and I know about?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. As a football coach on Saturdays, all day, brother.
Yeah.
All day. But that'd be now, but if I'd still rather have him for 2 or 3 years and you at least level the program and get it to where you need until, you know, it's Prime or somebody else. Yeah. I'd be okay with that. But there's no Urban Meyer kind of guy like when Florida hired him from Utah. There isn't. I mentioned Rhett Lashley at SMU, but he's 41 and this is his first gig. Is he ready for Florida State? Probably not. But
I don't. It can't get worse than what we're seeing.
That's what I'm saying. That's the other thing. But when you spend, as Alex duly noted, over 60 mil just to get that, doesn't count the assistants. That doesn't count the lawyer fees. And that doesn't count the new assistants and the new. I mean, it's insane. You'd spend over $100 million to make a change before the guy took the field with the Knowles. Bro, they've got stadium renovations going on and the ACC lawsuit. The timing could not be more detrimental. So unless somebody ponies up, it will not only get worse, it could bury the program for several years, because I will guarantee you right now there will be a mass exodus from current roster in December. Anybody wants to wager against that with me, I'm happy to take your money.
I'm gonna tell you. I'm not betting against you on that, because I remember early in the season, you were the first person on any outlet. I was looking for it on national. I was looking for it on local. You were the first person to say this is a 3-win team. It was just you. And everybody called you a madman. They said you're an idiot. You don't know ball. You're a Miami guy secretly. All that type of stuff. And lo and behold, I mean, they're on pace for that. Below that 3-win, actually.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. I shot a high watermark number at 3-9.
You were ahead of the curve, because I noticed, like, after the Georgia Tech game, the dialogue was, hey, they can still go 11-1. After the Boston College game, they can still go 10-2.
I told everybody. Nah,
and that's what I'm saying. After the Boston College game, I remember Smitty got up here and said, that is a 3-win team. I said, what? What? No way. Lo and behold, the brother was right. I'm going to tell you, they got less wins than we got strands of hair on the top of our head. We 3 ball guys.
They got less wins than lawsuits right now.
Hey, you're right. You're right. Lawsuit cop. 3.
Well done, Donna. Well done.
Woo,
Yeah.
nasty work. Nasty.
Well, so let me ask you one more thing. So is it still the most likely outcome that keep Norvell but force him to clean house on the staff? Because then the concern there would be who wants to work for somebody who's probably a lame duck, right? I mean, if you're trying to go out and get the best assistant coaches, they're going to say, wait, how much longer are you going to be here? How much longer am I going to be working for you?
Alex is also bringing up a great point there. You would have to hitch your wagon to somebody that is just very unique. And I don't think they're going to be able to get, quote unquote, the pick of the litter because of that point. Why would you? And I've said that many times on Locked On Seminoles. Why would you go in, drag your family from God knows where, take your kids out of school, wherever they're at, down to Tallahassee, and he's on the hottest of hot seats? Why would you? Your mom be calling you like, why are you taking this job? You know what I mean? It'd be awkward. I don't see how this works either way short term. I just think out of the disasters, it's lesser to get it done now. Because if you're rostered completely, if I'm correct about the portal, I think they're going to lose some guys they can't lose. I'm just going to leave it at that in December. And then next year, when Kenton says, Brian, what do you think Florida State's record? I'm going to tell you right now, that at most next year, they're going to be a 4-win team because their roster is going to be so depleted from the transfer portal.
This is the most unique collapse I've ever seen.
Me too.
Because we can't pinpoint one thing to say, hey, this is what happened, right? Like normally when a team is really good, we see a group of 5 team be great and then their head coach leaves. Or we see a team in the Power 5 be really great, their head coach retires, goes to the NFL, something like that. Or we see a scandal where they have scholarship reductions, bowl bans, and players transfer out. Nothing major to that vein happened. And this team overnight just, all right, we're good. We don't need to play any football this year. We'll go to sleep till we're in the SEC or the Big Ten, I guess. This is an embarrassment on FSU, man. This is the worst black eye season I've ever seen from one of those teams. Now, I always talk about there's about 12 to 15 teams where winning 8 games a year is not enough. Florida State is one of them, and this is the most embarrassing year I've ever seen from one of them because this one has no explanation.
You said it, and I don't think that it's going to slow down, much to Alex's happiness. I think Florida State's rough patch will last at least 2 more seasons because, again, I think the roster is going to turn over. Like Cignetti, to your point, would be a good because he's a guy that's just a great football coach. He would maximize whatever is there, and they could maybe get somebody, but they'd have to buy out his contract at Indiana. He's in year 1. I mean, everything is bad. There isn't a guy anywhere that's got a low contract, that's like a 10-year coach, that's got the expectations and understanding of being like in the Deep South, the craziness with recruiting. Who is it? There isn't a guy out there like that. So Florida State's in a really awkward spot. I'm glad I'm just covering the team, not somebody in the administration with an impossible decision to make.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of money to raise. Well, we appreciate your time. He's Brian Smith. And his shows have been great. I mean, despite the mess that's been on the field, Brian has done an awesome job covering everything going on there. So make sure you check out Locked On Seminoles. Make sure you check out Kenton and Grayson on Locked On Wolfpack. Check me out at Locked On Canes. And we will talk to you guys again next time. Smash that like button, subscribe. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.